Hi, I'm Eugene Sakai, co-founder of Studio S Squared Architecture. We are a full-service architecture and interior design firm, designing homes all over the San Francisco Bay Area and more recently the Monterey Peninsula. We offer architecture, interior design, and landscape architecture services all in-house. We work collaboratively with clients and each other to create unified designs from the moment you pull into the driveway to the moment you are relaxing in the great room of your home. Today, we are going to spotlight our fabulous interior design team and why we felt it was necessary to have interior designers and architects working together on our projects. So welcome to our video, Interior Design at Studio S Squared, Part 1, Who and Why. So I want to give a brief introduction to our fabulous interior design team director, Sierra Schmidt. Sierra joined in Studio S Squared in 2018 and has been instrumental in bringing our interior design department from a mere concept to a smoothly functioning team of interior designers. So welcome, Sierra. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, you kind of said it best. I'm a Carmel Valley native. I grew up on the Monterey Peninsula. I started working for interior designers in high school and right out of high school. And through my design education, as well as my job experiences, I came to Studio S Squared in 2018 to kind of help get the interior design team nicely established and continue to grow that side of the firm. So that's what brought me here. And I think what I've enjoyed the most since joining Studio S Squared is developing close client relationships. So that's kind of where I have the most fun.
Well, that's great. That's one of our core values as a firm. And so what would you say is your guiding philosophy towards client service, collaboration, and interior design?
So I think when I think about my design philosophy, I think it boils down to that one word of collaboration. And that comes out in all aspects of the process. So we collaborate firstly with our team to see through our client's vision in a unified way. You know, we kind of operate as architecture and interiors as one. Then, we collaborate with our vendors to make sure that what we're specifying and what we're detailing is not only meeting the client's needs, but it also meets our office standards. And then we also collaborate, most importantly, with clients. And, our kind of main driver throughout the design process is to arm our clients with the knowledge in order to make the best decision for them and their family. In many, many different ways. And then finally, at the end of the process, we're collaborating with the contractors to make sure that the vision that we've all worked really hard together on, both with the client and in our office, is coming to life in a beautiful, wonderful way. So I think collaboration is, it's one of our core values, but it's also just a personal philosophy.
That's great. Yeah, you pretty much touched all the possible collaboration points there, which is great. So with regard to your team, you're obviously the design director of the interiors team. We have also an architecture team, of which Jose is the design director of. Tell me a bit about how you work with your project managers.
Yes. So like you said, Jose and I are kind of the leaders of both the architectural and design team, and we're kind of a big support role and a face throughout the life of the project, both for our team and with clients. The PMs work directly with Jose and myself on their projects that have been assigned to them. The PMs are, really in the trenches day to day, working on the actual design. And Jose and I are overseeing that, making sure it meets our office standards, meeting face to face with clients, and working on overall concept with our teams. So the project managers are, going to job sites and, coordinating day to day with vendors and the contractor and the clients. And Jose and I are kind of overseeing all of that and making sure that that vision is seen through to our standards and making sure that clients are happy.
So this is our office space, which is 1000 South Winchester Boulevard in San Jose, right off the freeway. And tell us a little bit about this space, because our team was involved in designing it.
Yes, I like to call this our little jewel box in San Jose because Most of our team members and a lot of clients have actually found us by driving by this office. And you'll see there that little glass form is our conference room, which we have a lot of fun in. And we were actually the interior designers for this office as well. We're super proud of it. We think it reflects who we are. And it's a fun place to collaborate together. You can see on the bottom right photo, that's where the whole team kind of works together. We have an open office environment. And within our conference room, we have a huge table for all of our samples where we meet with clients. And we have a lot of storage along that back wall that holds all of our samples. So that's kind of where we really dive in with clients on interior designs.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
And we hope you come visit our office soon.
Yes.
So a little bit of a background on the history of the interior design team. It's a relatively new history. You know, we operated strictly as an architecture firm for nearly 20 years. But as our projects grew in scale, we saw a real need to develop an in-house interior design team, primarily because of repeated client requests. So for a while, despite these requests, we would defer or we would refer other interior designers to our clients because we knew really deep down that interior design was difficult. And it was not a specialty that we felt comfortable offering to our clients and meeting their expectations. But really, you know, it was just the fact that we kept getting asked over and over by our clients, can you do our interior design? Will you do our interior design? You know, we don't have a designer and we actually want to see a cohesive vision. So it was really because of that we very seriously back in 2017 started to formulate the idea of developing an interior design, but really wanted to do it the right way, which was bringing in dedicated staff who were trained, educated, and had professional experience in interior design, as opposed to trying to put a square peg into a round hole and have our architectural team do it. And so that was, I think, a very key decision. You know, just another driver for us in going down that path, because it was a pretty important commitment to the firm and a real change in the way we operated. You know, we were growing dissatisfied with the results that we were seeing when we were partnering with other design firms. It was just very mixed results, both from the standpoint of our own aesthetic satisfaction with the results that we were seeing, but also clients were saying, you know, that the results from their end weren't as smooth or had the end results that they were looking for as well. And so having all of that feedback, you know, we decided that we would take that plunge back in 2017 and we started offering interior design. But when we did that, we wanted to actually learn from the lessons that we had seen in collaborating with other interior design firms, because we had a vision of doing it better and having it be a much more collaborative process than what we had experienced with outside interior design firms. And so we embarked on this journey with the vision of doing it differently. And Sierra was really the one who set a lot of this in motion. So maybe Sarah, if you could just weigh in a bit on some of the values and the approach you brought to the process when you came into the office many years ago.
Yeah. I think that, you know, with my previous experience, most of the interior designers work during construction or when construction is beginning, which creates, you know, generally a lot of change orders if you worked with another architect, and change orders are anytime scope of work changes from the original contract with your contractor. And so we, having learned from my previous experience and having spoken with Studio S Squared about working with other outside interior designers, we kind of decided that it was best to start working on the interior design pre-construction in parallel with the architecture, so that we are able to make a lot of these changes that are quite costly down the road before construction even begins.
Right, because I mean, at the end of the day, interior design, I think at its fullest potential is more than just decorating surfaces.
Right.
You know, and that's what we saw a lot of when designers were brought in late in the process or during construction, was that there was really primarily a focus on surface treatments.
Yeah.
What are the paint colors? What tile am I applying? But in contrast, our designers focus more on what we call in the office interior architecture. So Sierra, maybe you could explain for our guests what interior architecture means.
So interior architecture focuses on the function of clients and their kind of built environment. So it's very function focused. That means that our team is manipulating space to blend that function with form to create an interior that feels cohesive with the exterior. And that's kind of what we really focus on.
Yeah.
So basically put, we manipulate the interior structure of the building. We're not just applying finishes, which generally a lot of interior designers are only able to apply finishes because that interior structure has been created by another architect.
Right, right. And that ties back to my previous point about kind of the timing of when a designer comes into play. And if they come into play late, a lot of times that structure is pretty much set mostly in stone, figuratively, but really in wood and concrete, literally. And so to change structure late in the game during construction will yield a large change order. To change structure during an engineering construction documents process will also yield a change order from the design team. So there's a financial impact to having a designer come in late, and we mitigate for that by bringing the design team in early so that they can weigh in on things like these images that you see here, you know, the vaulting of a ceiling, you know, the framing around a fireplace, the thickness of a wall, you know, all of those things are structural in the sense that they have to be framed up by a carpenter. And if they're not included in an engineering package or in a bid package, those will be change orders to the homeowner, and very expensive ones at that. And it goes down even to smallest details, such as this hidden door that has to be detailed up front. Otherwise, you're not going to get a seamless look. You're not going to be able to get this look where you have kind of a custom door panel and a door that blends in seamlessly to the wall without figuring that out up front.
Right.
And so that is also what I think about when I think of interior architecture. It's thinking about the building from the standpoint of the interior in a much more detailed and user-oriented way than an architect typically does. Sierra, I remember that one of your early contributions to the firm when you came in, it had to do with looking at the furniture blocks that we'd been using in our CAD files for many years, and I'm talking probably decades, and also some of our bathroom blocks, and just telling us that you know, based on your experience, that we were not doing it right, that the scale of things was off. That the bathrooms were too small, the furniture blocks were out of date. And I'm sure there's other examples too that you can think of, but those are the ones that stand out for me. I just remember you came in and had a distinctive point of view that was different than the one we've been sort of in for the last 15, 20 years. And it really changed how we operated fundamentally. What are some of the things that you can think of that we were doing wrong when you first came in? And be kind here, be kind, we're all friends.
Of course, of course. Some other things that, you know, through getting to know the current floor plans that you guys have been drawing, and I sort of discovered that we needed to account for things like window and door casing in our floor plans, so that when you come out to the construction site, you have enough space for them. And I found that I even learned in some of the earlier projects that, you know, that we weren't accounting for enough breathing room for those types of elements. I think also really thinking about coordinating with mechanical consultants and electricians on how to most eloquently place light fixtures, different lighting elements that we weren't already incorporating, different layers of light, as well as coming up with sophisticated ways to hide vent registers. So that kind of meant that our team needed to start coordinating with more consultants more often, but it really results in a little bit more of a seamless, effortless looking design, even though there's a lot of effort going into it.
Right, right. Yeah, to that last point, I don't think I had ever seen an interior designer or an interior design team like ours get into the degree of coordination that our team does with engineers, because you ladies dive very deep into where ducts are placed. If we have to hide duct work by, you know, doing a ceiling treatment, you know, structural beams, how those are expressed or not expressed, hidden or not hidden. You know, those are all things that typically are left to, quote, figure out in the field that we figure out up front, which I think is incredibly powerful for both the client and their budget.
Yeah, agreed.
I think to continue on that point, I think about how architects are trained conversely. And I really appreciate how designers are very attuned to small details of use cases, which I think is especially important in residential design because it is so intimate and it's so personal and so directly connected to the end user. What do you think about that, Sierra? I've been talking for a while here.
Yeah, I think that you're hitting the nail on the head. I think that architects tend to have their specialty is equally as important, but they have a more zoomed out approach. You know, the overall building and how those
Mhm.
forms look. And I think interior designers all have a slight obsession with function and how form meets function in the middle.
Yeah.
And so I find, you know, with our team and even myself being in client meetings and getting obsessed about like talking with a client about what isn't working well in their current home that we can make work well in their new home. And we also, you know, very much are specialists in materials, durability, and how those
Mhm.
materials come together on a construction site. So we dive into those smaller details that really is our specialty. It's not something architects are missing. It's just, you know, this team together kind of focuses on both sides of the spectrum there. So totally agree.
You're very kind to architects. Not all designers are so kind, trust me. But yeah, I think it's interesting because, I think even our clients have probably heard about the turf wars or the battles that might occur between an architect
Yeah.
and an interior designer. And it's interesting that it's evolved to this. And I've seen them, I've unfortunately been part of them. But, historically, architecture and interior design were really one and the same, especially on the residential scale. This is one of my favorite homes, which is in Pasadena. It's built in the early 1900s. The architects were two brothers, Charles and Henry Green. This is the Gamble House. It's for one of the heirs of the Procter and Gamble fortune.
Mhm.
And it's a building that's owned by USC School of Architecture, and so it's available for tours. And I've been inside this building
Me too.
several times, as I know you have. It's one of our favorite buildings that we share. But the thing that I like about this building that I've grown to appreciate even more in recent years, now that we have our interior design team in house, is how holistic this house is from the exterior to the interior. And I'm going to toggle back and forth between these two slides because there's a real continuity in the exterior expression and how materials are used on the exterior and how they're carried through on the interior. There's a sophistication, there's a continuity, and it's not just in taking the same materials and using them inside and out. There's kind of an aesthetic point of view that this house takes, even into the small details about how these wood pieces look vaguely Japanese, as does the exterior, without being literally Japanese. And that's partly because of the two brothers having visited Japan fairly recently, which was rare in those days. But they took inspiration from their travels and it informed their work, and it informed it in a holistic way from both the inside and outside.
Yeah.
So that's something that we try to do on all of our projects. I mean, we're aspiring to the level of Charles and Henry Green. But, we also believe that a cohesive design does more than just use exterior materials on the interior and vice versa. There has to be kind of a unified vision of the whole and kind of an aesthetic point of view, like the Green brothers had on the Gamble House. So Sierra has just put together some images here of a house that we have that is, I think these are in progress photos, as you can see by the pink buckets here. But, this I think is a nice example of that approach. So maybe you could tell our clients a bit about this house.
Yeah, so this house is in Los Altos. These are progress photos since this is nearing the end of construction. This is for a young couple and their newborn. Well, they were newborn. He was a newborn. And this I thought was a nice tie back to the Green and Greenhouse because we are using, more obviously this stone on the exterior of this home. But if you go to the next slide, Eugene, we are using that stone also on the interior, but we're not just using that material. We're carrying that language that you see in the previous slide of that stone expression on the rear patio that Eugene's pointing out there. And that runs right to the interior and becomes the fireplace. And so we're doing that in a couple different ways. And that really, when you start to open up your great room doors to your patio, is going to just pull more of that outside in and vice versa. There are other ways, smaller ways we've done this too, where on the exterior we have a cedar soffit that's been stained a richer, darker color. And we didn't want to as obviously pull that in because the clients didn't love having cedar on the interior. So we decided to do that with these stained oak rails that we've lined in the tray ceiling in the same direction, so that you still get that sense of the wood coming onto the interior of the home without being, super obvious and smacking you in the face with it. So bringing in those rich tones that you also saw on the front elevation, these rich brown tones, pulling those in. The interior tile is very similar to what's happening on the outside. So really, I think this is a good example that's easy to see how that language is being expressed both on the outside and the inside.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. What I also observed as an architect, and kind of thinking back on my experience with how I've seen this approach mishandled, is, a lot of times, like I said, it's easy to just say, hey, there's some stone on the outside, let's apply it here. And then you might see something that looks paper thin and doesn't have the full thickness that you would expect out of a stone wall. But what I love about your team's approach is how you don't just apply materials, you think about the expression of them. And what I mean by that is just look at how the stone is detailed. You see, this is actually a veneer. This is not solid stone. Basically, if you were to remove the stone and look inside, you would see air. So, but the intent is to call back to heavy masonry buildings, which are thick walls and punched openings. And areas where you can see the mass of the stone expressed, which gives it that harkening back to a true stone wall. And so the understanding of how to detail the stone, as you see here in this portal between the great room and the kitchen, how the stone turns, and actually even turns back on the other side in the kitchen. So you're seeing it not just on one surface as a flat plane and kind of like a wallpaper effect. You're expressing the mass of it. And that happens in multiple places. You mentioned that this wall is a continuation of this stone expression here. So when these doors are open, that flow is immediate, and it's legible, and it's understandable that this is the design intent, and it reads so beautifully. And when we punch into the stone wall, it's for key moments, like this fireplace and this sort of media wall feature, and then an opening into the bedroom wing. And then similarly, a celebration of an opening into the kitchen. And then a very nice lintel. There's so many small decisions just in these photos. I could probably talk for another 15, 20 minutes just on these two photos. But, I appreciate these sorts of things because I've seen them done wrong on so many projects. And unfortunately, some of those were our projects, which is, again, why we're doing this in-house and why we're doing it better and differently. Well, great. So I think we're pretty much near the end of our presentation here. But Sierra, do you want to kind of wrap things up for our clients?
Sure. So as designers, interior designers, our training and perspective is different than the architects. And I think that coming together, we really complement one another. And I think, throughout this video, we've covered a lot of that. And I think that it ends up really enhancing our buildings in a collaborative way. And we all have the same goal, and that's to see the client's vision through, create a beautiful design along the way, and ultimately have our clients move in and feel so great about that process that they embarked on with us. And I think that working with one team in-house is the most seamless and enjoyable approach to take. And we would love to work with you.
Yeah, that's great. As you can tell, Sierra is a fun person, and her team is very fun. We have another video that talks a lot more about what that process is. So I encourage you to look at that video as well, which will feature both myself, Sierra, and some of our project managers on both the architecture and interior side. And you'll get a nice window into how that collaboration actually occurs. So please stay tuned for that video. Thank you so much for watching this video, our part one video on interior design at Studio S Squared.
Thank you. And follow us on our Instagram account too. It's at Studio S Squared.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Sierra. And
Thank
thank you
you.
to our clients and potential clients. And we hope to see you on the next video
Yeah.
and in our office.
Yes, in our office too.
Bye.
Bye.